Welcome to the Burn Factory Podcast with Priest and Phoenix Rivera. Listen as the boys interview the biggest names in sports and entertainment. The Burn Factory starts now.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Factory Podcast. I'm your host, Priest, joined by my co-host, my brother, the one and only Phoenix. Say what's up to the camera.
What's up, y'all?
This is called the Burn Factory for a reason. I was literally caught on fire. 50% chance to survive, but through that started this podcast because I believe every single person out there on this planet goes through a burn moment somewhere in their life.
You heard Priest say a burn moment. So a burn moment is a very hard time in your life that you just have to fight and get through. And me and Priest believe that every single person on this earth go through little burn moments that truly make them who they are. But what a special guest we have today. Our guest is a two-time WWE World Champion. He's a two-time ECW World Champion. He's a two-time WWE Intercontinental Champion and a three-time WWE United States Champion. Not only that, he's a phenomenal collegiate wrestler. He was a three-time NAIA National Champion. And to top it off, he was an amazing mixed martial artist.
So please give a warm welcome to Bobby Lashley.
I feel special with that introduction.
Welcome. I had to do it big.
He sounds like Bruce Buffer over here right now.
I'm coming for his job now.
You should get in there. At some point, they gotta retire.
I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. That's not my role. That's not my gig.
He's
Announcing,
special.
he is special.
He's special.
And I'd have to develop my own thing of, like his was, it's time. And developing my own thing would be difficult.
So, Bobby, I gotta ask you, how do I look like you? What do I need to eat, lift? Well, come on. What do
It's years and years of dedication. I mean, I started out when I was little and just working out because I was small. I was small in high school. My freshman year in high school, I weighed about 110 pounds. So I was one of the small guys. I was a small guy on the wrestling team, and then I just kept getting bigger and bigger. I didn't start actually putting on weight until I went to Olympic Training Center. So that was even after college, because in college I wrestled at 167, and then my senior year I wrestled at 184. And I went to Olympic Training Center, wrestled 187, and then jumped up to 211, 211 at the time, 96 kilos.
Wow. So you gained, what, 30-ish pounds over 1 year?
What a difference. Well, not actually, because with wrestling, as you know, you cut a whole bunch of weight. So I was cutting a tremendous amount of weight to make it down to 187. And then it just got to a point where I was like, I can't do it anymore. So so I went up, and there was no weight class in between. That was a big hurdle for me. Because at 187.5, and then you had 211. If you look at some of the smaller weight classes, they're every 5 pounds. But for me, it was a big jump. So it's either cut all the way down to 187 or go with the big boys. And I decided to go with the big boys at the end of my career.
How hard was that?
Not at all. It was easy. Because one, when I was growing up, I didn't have too much, you know. So we were, I don't want to say poor, but we just didn't have a lot. So nutrition wasn't there. I didn't really work out as much. When I went to Olympic Training Center, we had Olympic training. We had strength conditioning. We had all the food you can eat. Great food up there at the Olympic Training Center. So I just naturally started putting on weight. And then just knowing the training different and just having different coaches and everything, it just made a huge difference in that transition from 187 to 211.
Mm-hmm. What age did you start really putting on a lot of weight?
Shoot, I was probably 23, 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got some time. I can do that. But Bobby, you're actually leading us right into B, beginning. So on our podcast, we do use the acronym BURN. So each letter is a different time in your life. So B stands for beginning. Take us back to the beginning. Take us back to your childhood. What was it like growing up? And were there some burn moments that you had to overcome?
I would say probably so. I mean, my dad was in the Army. So we grew up traveling all over the place. My parents were originally from Panama, so they came here to the United States. So English was their second language. So when we came here, it was just traveling. And we lived in Kansas starting out, and then I moved over to Germany. Then I started school in Germany, and then we came back to Kansas again. So
what made you go to Germany for a couple of times?
That's where my dad was stationed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we got stationed there for 4 years, which was a great experience for me. I loved it in Germany. And then we came back to Kansas. And I guess when I really started taking off into wrestling. My parents got a divorce. My dad moved, and I was living. Me and my sisters were living with my mom in Kansas. So it was a little challenging for us because, like I said, English was our parents' second language. So my mom didn't really have like a really good education. So she was just working at like kind of gas stations on post. So she wasn't making a lot of money. So we didn't have very much at all. So at that point, I just put all my energy into working out. That's where it all started. And I remember the first time when I did it, it was we were because I was like one of the football players, and I was a starting running back, so I was kind of one of the stars on the team a little bit. And when we came up our freshman year, our coach was like, all right, I'm going to teach you guys how to start lifting. So it was the first time we lifted. And of course, when you go into high school, the first lift they have you do is bench press.
Yeah.
So I was a skinny kid, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I'll stay away. But there was like 6 of us in the room. They put some weight on, and they put 25s on each side, so 95 pounds. First guy comes up, he knocks it out a few times. The other guy knocks it out. And as everybody starts doing it, I'm like, uh-oh. They're going to get sooner or later. And I remember when that happened, I went under that bench, and I took it off, and boom, dropped on my chest, and I couldn't get it off. Oh. And that was like, it was heartbreaking. Because I was like one of the stars on the team, but then when we had this little bitty challenge here, huge failure. And from that point on, that's when I kind of started working out on my own. I wasn't doing it in practice or wasn't doing it at school. I was doing it at home. Like I was doing push-ups. I was running like crazy and everything like that. And I never wanted to get embarrassed like that again.
That's the burn moment right there.
That was my mini burn.
That was your mini burn.
So what got you into wrestling?
I started in 7th grade because we had football, of course, football season. And then the next season was wrestling or basketball. And of course, I was going to play basketball because everybody was. But we didn't have basketball for 7th graders. So my football coach was a wrestling coach, and he's like, come on. He said, you should try it out. Just come to practice. If you like it, then we can keep going. But if not, at least give it a shot. So I went to practice, didn't do anything, just kind of sat around. And then I was like, all right, I'll try it out. And then second time I came, I practiced a little bit. And I was kind of good at the beginning, but I was small. Because my 7th grade year, I think I wrestled at 84 pounds. Yeah, so I was tiny. And the thing that I got, the reason why I took off in wrestling is because in football, everybody was bigger. In wrestling, I got people my own size. So that's why I was killing people my own size. Because in football, you run through the middle, linebackers, they're 200 pounds. He could just beat you up. And I was getting beat up a lot in football. But in wrestling, I'd go against guys my same size. So that's when I really kind of took off.
So did you play football all the way up until your senior year? Or did you give it up and start going full on for wrestling?
I started wrestling full time probably my junior year.
Junior year.
So my freshman and sophomore year, I still played football.
Was it hard to leave football behind?
Yeah. It was tough. But our team wasn't very good, and we didn't have really good coaches either. So there was no real push effort to keep me in there. Now my wrestling coach was a huge mentor of mine. So I sticked with wrestling, and he was right there with us the entire time. He would drive us to wrestling tournaments on the over the summer break, and he was almost like a mentor to me because my dad was gone. So he was kind of the person that we would always talk to and kind of kept everybody together, and he was that male figure for myself and a lot of the other guys on our team.
Do you still keep up with him to this day? Yeah?
Yeah, every time I go home, we call him up. We go have a drink, go talk.
Oh, that's cool. And he was in Kansas as well?
Mm-hmm.
Is he still there?
Still there.
Wow.
Still there. Just retired a couple years ago, but he was a good dude.
Do you think if you didn't meet him, your life would be completely different?
I mean, that's a tough question because it could have been because I might have went a different direction. I knew that I had something. I was a very athletic kid. Everything that I did, I was like one of the kids that was picked first or something like that. I was fast. I was very athletic. So I knew it was something. But if it weren't for him, it might not have been wrestling because he was the one that kind of pushed me into it. And then he kept me honest, and he was just kind of like that role model for me. If it was a football coach, I might have went football route. I never know. And then I did track, and I played baseball also. Baseball was my first love. But when I got up, into high school, that's when I stopped because we didn't really have a good baseball program. There was nobody really there. So after wrestling season, I just kept wrestling.
It helps you for football, too.
It
They're
did.
two sports that go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
So then you grow on to wrestling in college. So what was that transition like from high school wrestling to college wrestling and your time there?
College wrestling was a big jump. It was a big jump. I went to a small school because being in Kansas, we didn't have a lot of eyes on us. So we weren't like that powerhouse state that a lot of Division I colleges were looking at. So when I was weeks away from going to college, I was going to go into the military because my dad was in the military and everybody else in my family was in the military. So I was just going to follow everybody else's lead. And like 2 weeks before school, I got a call, and coach from Missouri Valley called me up and said, "Hey, we want to offer you a scholarship." And I was like, "Awesome, I'll take it." I didn't know what it was about. He just told me some numbers, and then I remember afterwards, a couple of my friends called me up. They said, "Oh, you're going? You got a scholarship?" I said, "Yeah, Missouri Valley." They said, "Oh, what's the mascot?" I was like, "I don't know." He said, "What's the color?" "I don't know. Where's it at?" "I don't know. I don't know." This guy just called me. Said he's going to call back later on, and we're going to seal the deal, and I'm going to go up there in 2 weeks and start wrestling. So that's how it happened. I mean, I just go. A lot of things that happened in my life were just, here's an opportunity, take it and go and run with it.
Wow.
All the way through, it's been like that.
So did you even want to wrestle in college at all? Or did you just want to go straight to the Army?
I didn't know. I really didn't know. Because coming out of high school, I wasn't going to be able to afford going to college. And I didn't want to just be one of the guys that just stayed in town and worked. So I was like, well, I mean, I was successful in wrestling. I won state, took second my junior year. But I was like, I wasn't really sought after by any major colleges because nobody came to Kansas to look. So I was like, well, I was going to the Marines because the Marines was a tougher branch of service, I thought. So I was going to go into the Marines and then just make my way from there. I really just honed in on college. I mean, I was getting great grades. And then everything just, our team we just had a really good team because the team that I went to, before I got there, we took like 20th or 30th in the nation. So we weren't even a team that was on the map. But the year that I went there, we just all came together. There was a lot of really good wrestlers on our team. I took 4th my freshman year, and our team was in the top 10. So we made a huge jump. And then the next year after that, my sophomore year, I won nationals, and our team won nationals. Then my junior year, I won it, my team won it. And then my senior year, I think my team took second, and I won it for my 3rd time. So it was just a really good group of guys. And I had opportunities to leave my senior year, but it was challenging. I had some bouts with my coaches, but I mean, ultimately I wanted to get my degree. So I was like, we get an opportunity to wrestle everyone anyway, because with wrestling, we don't have that division where if you're junior college, if you're NAIA, or if you're Division II, you only play those. We would go to open tournaments all the time. So I get to test myself against anyone in the country. That's why afterwards, when I went to Olympic Training Center, I already wrestled most of those guys. So I was right in line to get right back in there to do something big and make that run for the potential Olympics.
Was that always the goal, to go to the Olympics?
When I got into college, yes.
When you got into college?
Yeah.
What was that point that you're like, you know what, man, I can actually make a run at this Olympics and I can make the team?
It was when I was at the Olympic Training Center, and when I was at 187, I was on the ladder, but I was like, I think I took 5th at nationals that year. But I was cutting a lot of weight. It was challenging. It was very challenging. So I don't think I wrestled as good as I could have because just cutting a lot of weight and trying to get there and trying to get down and then everything and just moving into freestyle from collegiate and folk style wrestling. It was a big jump. But the next year when I actually bumped up to 211, that's when I felt like, okay, my body filled out. I feel good. Everything's going right. And then I actually took 3rd at the World Team Trials that year. And that's when I was like, all right, here's time. I can make a run now. I mean, it would have been a tough weight class because that year Cormier actually won it. But
really?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Me and Cormier, we trained together.
What was that like?
We trained at the same time. We didn't train together, I would say that.
What was that like, though, training with Daniel Cormier?
He always, when we were at the Olympic Training Center, since I was on the Army team, we all trained together, but he would always train with Mo Lawal from Bellator. Bellator. Yeah. Those two were buddies, so he would always train with him, and then I would train with my partner, and they like to stick together. So I didn't get to actually train with him that much. I trained with Kerry McCoy, which was the heavyweight, and Kerry was a multiple-time Olympian and multiple-time national champion. Kerry was a bad boy, but Cormier used to try to like keep some distance, I think.
Really?
Especially we were in the same weight class, so of course you don't want to be practicing with somebody that you're probably going to be in a tournament with later. So he kind of
kept to himself.
Did he just not like you or something? Or
no, we were real cool. I mean, after practice, we all hung out, we all joked around, talked, and everything like that. But
interesting.
He's a little scared. He felt some competition coming.
He was like, scared. I'm just gonna say. I think a lot of times people would do that because at the Olympic Training Center, people would come from everywhere, and they would come with their teams. There's all kinds of teams that would come from other places, but they would come to Olympic Training Center to train. And a lot of times people would kind of pair up with who they were working with because, of course, we're all in the same weight class. A lot of people are in the same weight class. You don't want to just be training with the person that you're going to be wrestling with that week or even at nationals or at the World Team Trials. So some people liked trying to keep distance.
Yeah. Huh. Do you think you would have got him? If you would have wrestled him in the trials?
We had talks about it.
Yeah, talks. What kind of talks?
We wrestled once. He won. It was a close match. It would have been an interesting match.
Wow. Were you guys like the kind of the same exact weight or?
Yeah. Courtney, he's a little shorter, a little more, kind of a little chubbier, but I mean, he was good. I'm not gonna take anything away from him. He's a good friend of mine, and he was tough. So I mean, he handled everybody else, but we only had one chance to wrestle. I would have liked to wrestle him more, but just didn't work out that way.
Mm-hmm. So actually, after the Olympic Training Center, that's when you started going into pro wrestling. So what spiked that interest for you for maybe going after that?
Here's the crazy story. Here's my burn moment.
Okay.
It was a crazy story for me. So I went up to 211 that year, and I was at the Olympic Training Center. And when I was at the Olympic Training Center, Kurt Angle came because Kurt Angle was in WWE at the time, and he came there to do a vignette for the WWE. And when he came there, we were all training, and Kurt came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, you got a pretty good look. You ever think about doing pro wrestling?" And I was like, and I was a big fan of Kurt's. I was a big fan of Kurt from college, from high school, and the Olympics because he won the Olympics with a broken neck. Kurt was a beast before, so I was like, man. Me and him talked for a little while, and I was like, right now my sights are set for the Olympics. It would have been the 2004 Olympics. So I was like, I still want this goal. He said, but let's exchange numbers and just keep in touch. And then maybe after that, after the Olympic trials or Olympics, you can come up and do something with us. So we exchanged numbers. And then I went to the World Team Trials. And then after the World Team Trials, I was personal training at the time, and a client didn't show up, and then I went to go put some money in a bank. So I went to the bank, and as I'm walking up to the bank, there's like 3 guys sitting off on the side. And normally me, I just see the guys kind of, hey, what's up, walking to the bank, and then I walk into the first part, and I take some money out of the ATM, and as soon as I took the money out of there, I walked through the other door and got in the line. So how the tellers are kind of rounded in front. And then everybody was standing in line, and I got to the back of the line. The minute I got in the back of the line, I heard this big boom, boom. And what happened, these 3 guys that were in there kicked the door down, and they're firing. And I later saw the video, like, I turned like this. So this guy actually, I don't know if he was doing it on purpose or his gun just went off. But his gun, the shot just went like right over my shoulder. I took a dive down to the ground. And I was laying down on the ground there when all this was happening. Everybody was screaming. These guys were jumping over tables and going through. And it was quiet for a while. And then poof, you heard another shot. And I started moving forward. Now, at this point, I was thinking, when I walked in, I saw everyone. And there was like a bunch of women there and me. So I was like, man, I'm laying down on the ground. And I said, I'm just a target here. Yeah. If these guys want to start like firing and killing people, probably take out the biggest threat first. That's kind of what I was thinking. The whole time I'm laying down there, I was like, man, it's not supposed to end like this. It's not supposed to end like this. That's what was going through my head the whole time. Because I just had this good tournament at the World Team Trials. And then everything's kind of moving in the right direction. I felt good, you know, had a good morning. Then I walk into the bank, and then all this starts happening. So laid there for a little while. They stayed yelled, stole a bunch of money, and then they ran out. As soon as they ran out, they locked the door from the inside, and everybody started getting up. And when I got up, my knee was like huge. It got a little beat up from wrestling, you know, because normally you just get little bumps and bruises. But this time, my knee is like huge at this point. And ambulance came. I didn't want to go with them. Just went home, and I was like, I can't believe all that happened. But I had to go to the hospital that week, and they checked my knee, and I completely ruptured my bursa sac. My knee was like smashed. And the national tournament was like 8 months away, and then Olympic trials would have been 10 months away or something like that. So they told me that I had to have surgery on it. So I was like, man, all this time that I've been working, we're getting close to the Olympics. I finally get in a weight class. I finally moved up to a weight class I feel good at. And then this happens. So we had the surgery, and they said the surgery is going to be about 6-month rehab. So I'm just doing the math here. I was like, well, I got 2 months before nationals, and I could still make it. I just have to go through with this and start rehabbing. I said, if he says 6 months, I'm not the normal person. So I'm going to get done 4 months, and I'll still have 4 months to get ready. And, you know, at that level, that time is valuable. So that already decreased my odds of making the team big time already just from having that surgery. So I had the surgery, came out of the surgery, and then I was just like, man, we got to get this thing together. We got to get this thing fixed. So I was doing rehab, but I couldn't walk because I had this straight leg cast on. So I was like hobbling on crutches to rehab, trying to get this thing together. Then like maybe a month after it, my knee starts like just pounding again. Huge infection in it. What happened was they ended up leaving something in my knee. So it got infected. They had to go back in, tear through everything again. And then at that point, now I think we're 6 months out of world team or Olympic trials and like 4 months out. The time was not there anymore. And now I have to go back into surgery because they got to fix this problem that's messed up. So when they went back in, they did all that. I came back out. They said it was a lot worse than we thought. They had to cut me in the back also and drain some stuff. It was a big mess. So now I'm like sitting on the couch again with this straight leg cast on. And I was like, man, there it goes. That was it. Wow. I mean, that just cut me out of the 2004 chances because I couldn't do anything. All because of this 3 idiots that wanted to jump in this bank and start shooting it up.
That's crazy. That's actually leading us right into our next topic. And Burn, it's you. It's unfortunate. Just like how I said at the beginning of this podcast, I went through an unfortunate experience. My teacher was doing a science experiment that involved fire. It unfortunately blew up like a bomb, like a literal bomb in my face. And I was immediately rushed to ICU where I had 7 surgeries throughout the whole week, 1 every single day, and a 50% chance to survive. Because with burns, whenever you get burned, the skin continues to burn and burn and burn. On top of the swelling in my neck got burnt super bad, and they were worried about my breathing stopping. But whenever I was in the hospital, that's where I found my burn moment, where I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this unfortunate experience take a toll on my life. I'm going to turn it into one of the best positive experiences I've ever had. And what started the burn moment was I'm a competitive golfer, all hooked up to the IVs, can't even see out of my left eye because of how swollen it was. I would grab my putter and put ball after ball after ball. And that's what put a smile on my face whenever I found out I had a 50% chance to survive.
We all go through such unfortunate times in life, but it's like, what can you do with that situation to ultimately propel you forward? And you alluded this story that you just went through where you had to give up your amateur career in wrestling. But were there any other unfortunate burn moments that you had to fight and overcome in your life?
I think, of course, all the way through it is always something. There was always something. Without adversity, it doesn't make that victory at the end seem as successful, bright. I mean, all the way through it. I mean, that particular moment, I'll finish even with that moment. So with that moment, when I was there after that happened, I'm sitting there with the leg brace on, and I was on my couch, and a month later, you know, I'm sitting there, I was thinking, I got to get this thing off, got to do something. And I get a call out of the complete blue, and it was by somebody from WWE. And they said, hey, we know you want to wait until next year to come in and try out, but we have this big movement. We've seen you at the last tournament. We'd love for you to just come over there and just meet us and have us get an eye on you and see if we can make some kind of deal, agreement. And I was looking at the brace, and I was like, I can't tell him about this. Yeah. So I said, okay, when do you guys need me to come? And he was like, well, if you can come in 2 weeks. And I was like, there's no way I can come in 2 weeks. I hadn't walked in like 2 months at this point. I was like, I can't come in 2 weeks. So I was like, if you give me a little bit of time, and I kind of blew him off a little bit. The minute he said that, he's like, all right, we'll give you, let's do it at the next month at this date. We'll send you a ticket, come down here and check it out. And at that point, I went straight to rehab. And I mean, I was going to rehab like 2 or 3 times a day because I was like, I gotta do something. Because it's like one door closes, another door opens, you know? Mm-hmm. If you could take a negative and make it positive, that's like the key to everything. So that's what I did. I was just training like crazy, and I was just getting ready. And I actually went to the trial. It was a trial. I thought they were just going to come and we were just going to talk. So I had my leg brace on. I went to the airport. When I got out of the airport, I took the leg brace off and I kind of got rid of it because they were waiting for me there. So I was like, all right, just walk really slow. Because I hadn't walked in at this point, 3 months. But I walked the day before going to the airport because I had to make sure that I could move without them seeing it. So we were just doing baby steps. So the rehab guy was telling me, all right, just walk slow and you'll be all right. So I was just walking slow. And then we get there, takes us over to the wrestling ring. And he was like, all right, it was me and one other guy. And that guy's still in WWE to this day, too. It's 2 of us that came for the tryout. And he was like, all right, talk to us a little bit about wrestling, show us around the place. And he was like, all right, I'm going to show you guys some moves. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. You can show us some moves. Don't have me do them. Yeah. So he says, Bobby, get in the ring. He says, I'm going to show you how to run the ropes, like run back, bounce off this rope, bounce off this rope, and go back and forth. And I was just like, oh, man. So at that point, it was one of those things where here's my opportunity. I just grit my teeth and I ran. I did. I went back and forth and I was like the whole time. And I remember he said this afterwards. He was like, man, that was some great facials that you had there. And I was like, oh,
little did he know.
But I mean, I went through 4 days of that tryout, and then at the end of it, they called me up as soon as I got home, and they said, we want to offer you a contract. So that was it. That was my birth in the WWE.
What was that pain like in the knee running from post to post to post?
It was excruciating pain. And me and the guy that I was there with afterwards, every night we would, after practice, we would go to this little sports bar there, and we would just joke and laugh. And I'm sitting there icing myself. I was on pain meds, everything. It was rough, but I couldn't let them know.
Yeah. How mentally challenging was it during that time of that entire injury, from blowing your knee out right before the trials? How did you fathom that time? How did you get through it?
I figured, like I said before, I think there's always going to be adversity. It's just how you react to it. It's how you take it. I mean, a lot of people, they crumble with the littlest. If things aren't perfect for them, they'll crumble in a second. For me, I think everything's been challenging for me. So it was just one thing after another. Like, you talk about adversities. Like I said, when I was growing up, I wore the same wrestling shoes from my freshman year until my senior year. And we just didn't have money. So at the end, I actually taped my shoe up. So when I was in the state finals, I still have the video of it. In the state finals, I got my shoe all taped up. And I used to write stuff on my shoe, and it was like a big running joke. But the joke was, I couldn't afford new shoes. But my joke was, I used to put gotcha on my toe, because I said if people looked at it, I was so quick I would get them. That's how I kind of made it a negative into a positive.
Was there a certain moment that brought you joy during that tough time with your knee injury?
You know what? I think as an athlete, and for me, I've always worked. just the opportunity of doing nothing was a big deal. I mean, I can't remember the last time that I just like took a week off of anything, training or anything like that. So sometimes those injuries are just God's way of saying, hey, take a break. And that's what I took it. The first week I was just like, all right, you know what? I can't do anything. So I'm just going to sit on the couch, prop my leg up, and I'm just going to sit there and do absolutely nothing. Yeah. But after a little while, you know, of course that starts making you get anxiety, and I got to do something, and you're trying to like hand grippers or something like that, sitting on the couch. But I think sometimes we almost need those times to just get us to say, you know, just take a break. Just take a break and do nothing. So
that was hard for you then.
It was very hard for me.
Yeah.
And most athletes would say that's the hardest thing for them to do is just really take a break and not do anything.
Do you think it's because they're a fear of being caught by someone else or being outworked?
I think that's part of it. And then I think another part of it is it's like a ritual. Like some people have things that they do every day. And if you take that away from them, it makes them feel unbalanced. And I think for me, it's like that. Like there's certain things that I know, like how some people, you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth. I have in my day, there's some kind of workout. You know, it's always been there, always there. And if I don't, my body doesn't feel right. I just don't, like I'm not clear, I'm not mental. But that's like my therapy. I go to the gym, put my headphones on, and I work out. And my whole day is better because of that. It's just something that I had. So as an athlete, it's always been because, I don't want to say it's because of sports, but I know sports have been kind of my driving force. There was always a goal there. So I think if I didn't do something like that, it's like, all right, I'm not moving closer to my goal. So that's the athlete craziness.
Yeah. That's that little thing you were talking about yesterday.
I actually just saw on the tennis player Francis Tiafoe. He was just on the interview as the U.S. Open's going on right now in tennis. He's like, yeah, I have to have that craziness to pull a match off like that. Yeah. And that's what we were talking about last night. You got to have that craziness.
It's gonna be crazy. To make it to the top, you really have to be, because there's that level of just that real. Because you see most people, you can call it craziness. I think the people that make it to that level don't think it's crazy. They think that's sane. They think everything else is crazy. Because that breaking point, like most people have that breaking point. Whenever you're doing something, like you're running, there's people that are like, oh, he just quit. He broke. That's crazy. I'm not. And when you get to, and you could, any athlete will tell you this, any fighter, anybody, when you get to that point of that peak performance right before a fight or right before something where you're just like, everything's firing, full cylinders, everything's great. That's perfect in your eyes. And it's hard to maintain that. So anything less than that, I think it could be considered crazy. I think so.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So moving back to WWE, your first match comes. What were the nerves? What were the emotions? And what was it like your very first WWE match?
My first WWE match was, I had to, actually, that was the hard part for me, because when I went to Louisville, Louisville was Louisville, so it was crazy just by itself. But that's when my daughter was, she was born like right around the time that I was going on the road. And I was living in Louisville all the way through the time when her mom was pregnant. And that was challenging because, you know, I had to go back and forth, but I had to be there. I had to train. So a lot of times people spend years in the developmental program. But for me, I was just working. And as soon as I got on the road, I said, hey, I got to go home. I can't stay there anymore. And luckily, Vince was nice at that point. He was like, all right, we'll let you go home. So I was able to go home and just fly out on the weekends. But when I was doing that, what they do is they first have you do developmental. So those are the times where you see people talk about, I performed in front of 20 people at like a high school gymnasium. So I did those also.
Yeah.
Because everybody has to do that, because you have to know the crowd. You have to learn how to work the crowd. You just have to be able to do it without that fear. But fear in front of 20 people is completely different from fear in front of 20,000 people. It's a huge difference. So went there, and then once they see something in you, they say, we want you to come on the road. So when you come on the road, you go on the road with the WWE. So you actually go to some of the shows, you watch TV, and you get to see the whole production. So that's what I was doing. went there a couple times, and then I remember, I want to say it was Toronto. I hope I don't. It's got to. I think it was Toronto, but they put a board up and they write all the matches down on the board. Of course, I didn't go and look at the board because I'm not gonna be there. It's not my time. I'm not supposed to go. But somebody said, "Hey, man, you're on the board." And I was like, "There's no way I'm on that board." So I went over there and looked on the board, and sure enough, I'm not even on one of the pre-show matches. I'm on actual TV. Oh. And for me, I was always a really reserved, quiet, shy person. I liked wrestling, but it was a sport to me. So in my little bubble, I can still be me. But now I'm on the board, and there's 18,000 people at this arena in Toronto, and I got to go out. So there's a lot of nerves there, and we're live. We're live. That's the difference between us and like acting and anything else. It's like we're live, so there's no redos. There's no do-overs. What happens. So I was walking around and everything was just so tense. I was like, oh, now I got to do it. And I think one of the best pieces of advice I think I could ever get, I think it was Paul Heyman that told me. He just came by and he said, take your job seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. And that helps me out a lot in this business because we play characters and we have to get into it. And the more you get into it, the more crowd understands who you are. So you can't take yourself seriously. And with anything else, with anything dealing with media or social media, anytime when cameras are on, if you take yourself too seriously, you stay tight. And it's hard to really open up. So you just can't take yourself seriously. I played some ridiculous roles in wrestling over the years, and I have a big separation from it, and I love my separation because some of the guys stay in that role, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Hulk Hogan is now Hulk Hogan. He's not Hulk Hogan. That's not his real name, but that's what he's known by. He's in character all the time, and a lot of people are in characters all the time. Mm-hmm. For me, when I leave work, I go home, and I am no longer Bobby Lashley. I'm Dad. I'm Bobby. I'm just me. I like that separation. It's good for me. It's been healthy for me. Yeah. That's why I've been in this business so long. I don't take that. I don't have ego about wrestling. If I need to feed my ego, then I can strap on some MMA gloves and call Scott Coker up again. Yeah, and go out there and start fighting. That can check your ego or help your ego, no matter. But I don't have an ego with it. I understand the business, and I've done it for a long time, so it's easier for me to make that separation.
Yeah. Did you ever have a nickname like Hulk Hogan did? And
yeah, well, right now I'm the Almighty.
Does that mean something? What does that mean?
Well, before Vince McMahon, Vince really loved me. That was the cool thing about it. That's what helped out my career. He loved me because of the person I was. I'm not one of those guys that are all into the politics. We have guys that are some of the biggest politicians when it comes to business. They beg for what they want. They fight for what they want. For me, I was always the type of person that I worked hard. And Vince could see that. He can see it physically. He could see it. He just knew it. I was that guy. And I always did that. I was always somebody that he can count on. I always represented the company really well. Like when I go places, I dress nice. He's not going to worry about sending me anywhere and something happens. Because with anything else, if I go somewhere and do something stupid or I get in trouble, it's not going to be Bobby Lashley do it. It's going to be WWE superstar Bobby Lashley. So that tag is him. And he doesn't want people on his side that are going to mess up that. So with anything else, UFC, if you see any one of those guys get in trouble, it's not just so-and-so or so-and-so. It's UFC fighter. And it puts a bad mark with the company. So he always looked at me that way. He always looked at me as somebody that he could always respect and had a lot of confidence in.
Do you think buying into the politics too much affects those specific people's performance when they go onto it, or is it just all behind closed doors?
A lot of times it's behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But people know, Sometimes you fight through it. Sometimes you fight the people that are into it. Just you find your way.
Yeah.
Find your way.
Then fast forward, you win the WWE Championship. What was that like? 17
years later. That's what that was like. That was rough. Now, when I first came in, I won the ECW World Title. That has a lot of prestige, but it's not the WWE title. Some people go throughout their whole career and never even touch that title because that title has a lineage of like The Rock, has Hogan, has Ric Flair, has all the best of the best, the Batista, the Roman Reigns, the Cenas. It has the best of the best on there. Some people never have an opportunity to get that title. And you can really have a successful career and never win that title because a lot of people has. But for me, it was something that I really wanted to get. And my career was broken up. Like I didn't go just straight through. I went from 2003 getting my first contract and I left in 2008. And from 2008 to 2018, I fought. I ran gyms. I did one of the other small companies, Impact Wrestling. So I just did that for all that time. But my ultimate goal was the WWE Championship. And I made that. And when I went to Bellator, I put that, there was a stipulation in my contract that if I had the opportunity to go back to WWE, then they would pause my contract and allow me to go. And that's hard to do. Most organizations wouldn't do that, but that was the only way I was going to sign that contract. And Scott Coker, he's cool to work with, so he was like, I'll do that. So for me, I kind of did the unheard of because I went to WWE when I was 40 years old, the second time. Because before, of course, I was a young kid, hungry, great shape, everything. But later on, they try not to hire people that are older, like even in their 30s. But I came with a pretty strong package. You know, I had a good fan base, and I did pretty well in fighting. And then with the other organization, I basically ran their organization as a champ for 3 years leading up to it. So when I came back and had that little talk with WWE, they were like, "We'll let you in. I mean, your age may say 40, but we don't think you're 40."
Yeah.
So
was it hard to leave MMA or no? It was easy to go back.
Not really. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because from wrestling all my years, I wanted to get back in there. I wanted that fight again. But I really, when I went to MMA, I was like, I'm gonna do one fight. Then I was like, I'll do one more. I'll do one more. and then 20 fights into it, I was like, all right, I got to stop this sooner or later. But my deal with MMA was, my goal wasn't to be a UFC champion. My goal wasn't to be a Bellator champion. And that's where it was okay for me to walk away from it. Because I think some of the guys that are in there and they really want to make it to the top, they have to follow that mission. They have to complete that goal. For me, I just wanted to have some fights. And I really didn't train. I didn't train that much. Really? I had a boxing coach and I fell in love with boxing. So I really enjoyed boxing. But for fights, they would call me 6 weeks before a fight. I was training with like 130. I owned a gym in Colorado, and it was in Aurora, Colorado. So I was working with underprivileged kids. I was bringing them off the street. So I had a bunch of like high school kids that were in there. I had good mentors. I had a good jiu-jitsu coach. One of my best friends, he was a coach there. I liked him for the kids because he was a good mentor for these kids. And I brought in a whole bunch of guys that were really skillful in their martial art, but they were teaching kids and being mentors for kids. Because like if I rewind back when I talked about my high school coach was a big deal for me. And I think a lot of these kids that are in the inner city, they have these problems because they don't have a good mentor. So myself and then the other coaches, that's what we were about. So when they called me up and they were like, "Oh, you got to fight," and I was like, "I'm not leaving these kids. I'm gonna go over there and train with these kids." So I'm training with like high school kids, get ready for like real like serious fights. Oh. And then I had a couple training camps that I would work with. So I would go down with Josh Barnett in California. I would come down here and train with him. American Top Team was my home team. So I would go down there for like a couple weeks at a time and train and really get into a camp. But I never really had like a 6 or 8 week training camp where I was like locked in. It was just like, all right, I would hit mitts at home, do a little bit of sparring on the weekend, and then every once in a while I would go down to California, or I'd go to Florida and then train with some guys and just basically spar for a few weeks and get a little extra training in. Yeah. Then I was like, all right, let's go do this. Let's go.
It's like straight from a UFC game in my career. You just go in there, hit the bag, and then you go out there and
skip, and you go right to the fight.
Some things like riding a bike. You know, if you wrestle, my wrestling, I feel I was really confident with my wrestling, So all I knew is like I fell in love with boxing, but I don't want to test out. Oh, let me see if these things work in the cage when there's all these people watching. Yeah. I'll do that in practice. But I knew that if worse came to worse, I would take him down. If I take him down, I could control the fight. And I knew that I don't think that anyone that I fought could have stopped me from taking him down. So that was like my game plan. If I take him down, I'm good. And I was getting paid good money to do it, so it worked out.
This portion of the Burn Factory podcast is sponsored by Phoenix Salon Suites. Please visit Phoenix Salon Suites at PHENIX Salons SALON Suites SUITES.com to find one near you. Bobby, it's time to go to the next letter, R, ridiculous. You alluded some ridiculous characters you've played, but has there been a ridiculous burn moment or many ridiculous burn moments that you've endured in your career?
Man, if I talk about characters I played, that would be it. I mean, the last one I did a couple years back, and it was hard for me just to go into this character because I had a surgery, so I was out for a few months. And then whenever we get out in wrestling, they can't just like, all right, the next day you're back in. So they were like, how are we going to get you? We're going to work you back into the system, and we're going to work you back into the show. So I was getting out of my rehab. I think I was 4 months out. So the crowd kind of forgets about you a little bit. And then I get a call. And I think I was about to pick up my daughter too, and I was driving down, and I get a call, and the person calling, they said, all right, we're going to bring you back. We want you to do this role. And I said, oh yeah, what is it? He goes, well, there's a couple that's married in wrestling. The wife had been out the whole time also. So he said, well, what's going to happen is we want to bring her back, and then we're going to bring you back, and we're going to say that you guys got together when you guys were rehabbing. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, because wrestling to me, it's just kicking and punching. That's all I wanted. So he goes, so the guy was Miro. He was Rusev at the time, and his wife. They were actually married, but on TV they did a role together. So they said, she's going to come out when he has a match, and she's going to say, you know, Rusev, you didn't think about me. I was out rehabbing, doing all this, and all you were thinking about was yourself. And when you were thinking about yourself, somebody else was thinking about me, and I became friends with him. And they're telling me this, and I'm sitting there like, okay. And then he said, and then afterwards, you guys are going to like start kissing on the stage while he's in the ring. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I said, I don't know if I can do this. And so, of course, I get a call from a couple different people there, and they said, listen, there's parts of this show that it's character. And the one thing that they wanted to get me to do is to break out of my shell, because I've always been, you know, locked in. I'm always this hard, mean. They said, we need to see different levels of you. And I was like, we don't need to see this level. This is
kind of crazy.
Cool. And so I was like, man, I said, are they cool with it? Because they're married. Are they cool with it? And like, yeah, they're cool. We've already talked to them. And I was like, okay, all right. So they hid me in the back. And then they brought her back, so we were both hiding in a trailer off to the back, and they had the show going on. And we came out, she starts talking all this mess. Nobody had seen me for a while. And she comes out, everybody's cheering, and then she says, and somebody husband, and she singles for me to come out, and I came out, and everybody's like, hey, like this. And then she like grabs me, and then she starts kissing me, and we start kissing on stage, and the internet broke at that time. Everybody's calling me. It was very uncomfortable for me. Very, very uncomfortable for me, this whole role. But the main thing that they wanted to do, I had to look at it from a different point of view. And like, I met the couple. I talked to both of them. They were completely cool with it. And then we are running a show, so it's about characters. And for me, it's, you know, not taking yourself seriously. That was the hardest thing that I had to do, especially in this role. And I think that that's what Vince was trying to get me to do, is to be uncomfortable. That's the hardest thing that we have an opportunity to do. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. Everybody wants to be in their little safe place. When they get on TV, they want to play safe characters. But if you think about it over time, some of the best characters are the people that really just let go. Like, if you meet like somebody like a Kevin Hart is not like all amped up all the time. He's not. But people expect him to be. It's that he has the ability to let go. And that's all they were trying to get me to do. It was very cringy for me to do, and it was very hard for me to do. But we ran this little role. I got a lot of heat, and their social media went through the roof on everything that they posted what we did. We actually even went to a wedding, and during the wedding, of course, he came out, and everything went crazy, and cake was thrown, and people were getting beat up. But it was a very stressful few months of going through this role.
How many likes did it get on social media if it broke or views?
A ridiculous amount. I think just YouTube alone probably paid my salary for the year.
Oh my God. How long did this role go on for?
It was, I think it was a few months.
Wow.
It was a few months, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like another ridiculous moment is whenever you fought Mike Cook in the Maximum Fighting Championship and he came out in the Rey Mysterio mask and you took it personal. Oh
yeah, that idiot. And I didn't even know what it was about. See, the thing that pissed me off with that, this is the thing that pissed me off with that. You got me all worked up with this guy. So it was cool, all right. So I signed a deal with this. Oh, there's a lot to this one. I don't even know if I can talk about some of this. So it was Maximum Fighting Championship or something like that in Canada. So they called me up to do this fight. And I'm training for it, you know. For somebody to not have respect for me, they're not, like, I don't understand some of these MMA guys. They think because I went to pro wrestling, you can erase everything else that I've done, which is ridiculous. Somebody that just goes and his whole career has started out in an MMA gym, and he learns jiu-jitsu, he learns boxing, everything like that. He thinks that's more valuable than the 20 years that I had wrestling, winning national championships, placing at the world championships, and all this. Because that's what I took it as. But anyway, we go there. I didn't see the guy the entire time. We go for weigh-ins. I'm standing there with like Josh Thompson and some of the guys that I knew from like AKA and some of the guys from ATT. Like, we're serious. We're getting ready for a fight. And it's at weigh-ins. And Josh was like, he's like, do you know, where's the guy that you're fighting? And I was like, I don't know. He's around here somewhere. And of course, you want to see the guy you're fighting at that time, you know, like mentally size him up or whatever. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know where this guy is. And then, you know, people are going through weigh-ins and we're about to go to weigh-ins and he's still not there. And then he walks up. And he stands like next to me, but he's not. He doesn't want to look at me, and he's wearing a wrestling mask at that time. He's wearing a mask this time, and Josh looked at me, and Josh knows me, and I've been to enough gyms that the people in these gyms know what I'm capable of doing. Yes, I did pro wrestling, but they know what I'm capable of doing. So Josh just looked at me, and he was like, "Whoa." And I was like, and it would just like burn me up. And he thought it was a big game. That's all it was. It was a big game. So he went up there, he weighed in, and I weighed in. And then at that point, I was like, I don't even want to talk to this guy. So now I got a chip on my shoulder. Then the day of the fight, I don't even know if I can talk about that. I'll talk about it. Anyway. So the day of the fight, we're in there, and I'm with my boxing coach and one of the guys from ATT, and the owner of the fight promotion is calling me up, telling me, "Hey, you got to get the rest of your medicals." And I was like, it's the day of the fight. What medicals do I need to get? And he goes, "Oh, you need to go get your eye exam. You need to get all this stuff." So I was like, "What? All right." So we're running around, and the day of the fight, I'm running around doing all these things because he has a list of things that I need to do. So I'm going through all this, and then the last thing I had to do is I had to get my eyes checked. Got my eyes checked, and I had to get dilated because of what it says on this paper. So I had to get my eyes dilated before the fight. So I get my eyes dilated. And I was like, this is weird. So I go back, And then my coach was like, man, like we're trying to fight it, but they're telling me that I can't fight unless I get all these things done. So I get everything done. And then the fight. So we go to the fight. I go down to the ring, and I'm sitting there in the ring, and it's a boxing ring, and all the lights are beaming down. So I'm looking up there, and I can't see anything because my eyes are dilated because I've having to do this ridiculous checks beforehand. So I go through with that, and then I'm sitting in the ring, and then this guy, his music plays, and he comes out, and he has like the Rey Mysterio mask, and he's doing all this Hulk Hogan stuff. I'm like, I want to kill this dude. So he comes to the ring, and then, you know, Jesse McCarthy's here. He's the ref, and he's like, all right, gives the last stuff, and he's like, all right, if you guys want to shake hands, and he puts his hands out, and I walked away. I was like, man, I'm not going to shake you. Like, all this stuff that you've been doing, I'm not shaking your hand. And I don't know exactly what it was, but I wanted to hit him so bad. That's all I was thinking about. And I was doing this like switch step to a jab, and then I was supposed to end with a kick. And I was going out there, and that's the first thing I was going to do because I was catching a lot of people in practice with it. And then when the bell rang, we came at each other, and I ran at him with that, and I did it, and I felt like I clipped him. And I think I clipped him, but after that, his head fell like right into my arms. And I had this choke that I was doing. I choked a lot of people out with it, and I had him choked out. And I had him choked out from his feet because when you have somebody choked out like that, you can feel their body.
They go limp.
So he went limp, and we went down to the ground. And when we went down to the ground, he's flat, and I'm staring at McCarthy, and he's like looking at me like we didn't know what was going on. And then this guy's feet are like just going like this, but the rest of his body is not moving. I know he's out, and his feet are like going like that. And then he jumps in. He's no, he's out. It was weird because I think he was knocked out at the beginning, but his body was kind of like in shock, and like his feet were like kicking and everything like that. And it was going crazy. It felt weird. And then he was out. So I think it was only like maybe 20-something seconds. I think the fight was.
That's holding a long. What was it, like a guillotine?
Yeah,
almost.
It was a front choke. It was like a blood choke. I did a lot where I just kind of pin him and just kind of give him a little where he's like that, but I put him out like that right away.
Did it feel good to choke him out?
Yeah.
You didn't feel any sense.
I didn't want to take it personally. Yeah, you know, I got a little fired up, but that was just the crowd. That was the show of it. But you know, the funny part of it, and I'm not gonna say whether it was true or not, but the rumor was, and I was told this, is that the promoter had bet a lot of money against me for that fight because it was like I was like a huge favorite. He bet a lot of money against me, so he was trying to make sure that I was gonna be, you know, a little handicapped. Because the guy, like my record was 2-0 at this time. The guy I was fighting, his record was 9-2. So he was a tough, scrappy kid. I think he was from California. He was a tough, scrappy kid. But I think the promoter was putting a lot of money on it, and he wanted to like really pay out with it. So that's what he did, and so he lost his money, and they lost their TV deal after that also. Yeah. Did
it ever come out to the public what happened or no?
No, because there was only a couple of people that knew. He wouldn't tell, but he got taken off their. I forget what channel it was. It was like one of those channels that showed like some local fights, but like almost like a step under like Strike Force and everything like that. But they were doing well.
Yeah,
they had a Canada promotion. I think they may still throw fights, but they lost their deal after that.
That's what happens when you get into those lower leagues, man.
Shady.
It didn't work out though.
They did him dirty.
You got the last laugh.
Yeah, couldn't see. Still won.
That's so weird, yeah, because usually you do medicals at the beginning of the week, or even before you even get there. Yep. So to be doing it, the fight.
Did you have to do medicals twice then, or?
Yep.
Wow.
So they made you do medicals twice.
Yep.
Oh my God, that's some shady stuff right there.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize it because I was the only one at the second part, because they had their driver take us, so I was the only one there at the eye exam to get that part done.
Oh. That's insane. That's a ridiculous burn moment right there too. But all right, Bobby, it's time to go to the last letter N. It's two parts. So the first one is now. Are there some burn moments you're going through right now? And are there some burn moments that you see coming in the future?
Oof. I think there's always going to be something in the future. You just got to set yourself up for it and be prepared. I think right now, I don't know if it would be necessarily a burn moment, but I'm kind of at that place in my career where it's like we're winding down a little bit. I mean, with my job, it's not a job that you want to be doing well into your 50s or beating your body up. I put a lot of mileage on my body from wrestling, and I'm trying to look at what's next. I want to say I'm not at the point in my career, because you never want to say in your career that it's over, because if you say it's over, then you're going to move quickly that direction. But I think over the next couple years, I'm going to be slowing it down a little bit more. So that's kind of one thing that I've been looking at, is like, what's next? I mean, I've competed my entire life. I've competed since I was a kid. So to even look at the end point of not competing anymore, that might be a challenging thing to do. I mean, I kind of looking at what else I can do. I mean, like, there's jiu-jitsu and everything like that. You can do jiu-jitsu tournaments forever, but is that going to feed that competitive kind of hunger? Even with professional wrestling, there is a lot of competition there, because everybody's competing for that top spot. You got to be physically ready. You got to be mentally ready. You got to go through it. You got to win the crowd. So it's still a competition. Everybody's competing. So once I get out of professional wrestling, it's like, what do I do next? Am I going to be able to feed that hunger of competition? So I think that's the biggest thing that I have right now. Outside of that, you know, I stay pretty positive with everything. I'm always in a good mood, so I never let anything bring me down. I mean, I think I've been through so much over the course of my life that I don't think anything is really going to knock me back down.
Would you ever make the switch back to mixed martial arts?
I said no before, but there's a big possibility that's going to be yes. I don't want to be one of those. I would always tell my training partners, and if you see me slowing down, just tell me. Just sit me down and say no more. Because you always get those guys that never want to give up. You see it all the time. You see somebody that had won too many fights, and then it's sad because you see your hero getting beat up and getting knocked out, and it's like, oh, and he just looks not like that superhero that you saw him before. So I always tell my training partners, you know, if you feel that I'm moving a little slower, can't catch the jab, can't slip, just let me know and I won't do it anymore. But I have been talking with the Feldman, right? Dave Feldman.
Yeah,
Dave.
With bare knuckles.
With bare knuckles. There is an offer on the table right now to do a fight. Haven't really told anybody about it. So you've heard it here first.
Da-da-da. Breaking news, reporting live from the Burn Factory studio. We got Bobby Lashley.
Gonna fight. It's something that sparks a little curiosity. I wanted to do straight boxing because, you know, with the boxing gloves, it is what it is. I really love boxing. I feel like my boxing is good enough to go against another athlete, not like a straight boxer, but another athlete that we can probably put on a good show and have a good fight. But bare knuckles is a different animal.
Bare knuckle is
Different
one
animal.
and done. I feel like with
That's it. Well, you know, I say I don't want to be like the money because but the money is a big deal. It's a big deciding factor. I'm not just going to do it for free. So they came with an offer. They came with an opponent. I like the opponent. The offer's decent, but we just gotta go up a little bit more.
Go up a little bit more, and you'll do it.
There's a possibility.
Who's the opponent?
I
can't say it?
the opponent.
Can't say. He's just trying to dig.
He's got a pretty big name.
Mike Cook.
Yeah.
Like
The rematch.
Are you leaning towards it though? You think?
I just don't know, because like right now where I'm in my career, I still have another year of my WWE contract, and after that year, I don't know where I'm going to be mentally. I don't know if I'm going to want to do it then. Like if I could do it now, if I could take a little break and do it now and just train and do it, I would definitely do it.
Would they let you?
Don't know. That's why I told him.
I said, talk to Vince.
Vince will say no. Vince will say no. So I told him, I said, the offer has to be so great that I would be willing to have that argument.
Yeah.
Because it would be an argument. I would have to really fight that point. So it's got to be a big number.
We'll see. We'll see if it happens.
If you fight the right person, the numbers are there. But I just don't know if Bare Knuckles has that kind of money. They've been paying people a lot of money, but I don't know if they have that kind of money.
They have been. I mean, their last card was pretty good when they had Mike Perry and Luke Rockhold. Mm-hmm. So they're paying a lot of money, but I just don't know if they can get a real fan base behind it. That'd be tough. It's hard to watch. It's hard for us to watch, and we're avid MMA fans.
Yeah. And what I don't understand with it, it is its own fight. It's its own style of fighting. Because you would think that you just get some boxers to come in there, just clean house right away. But boxers aren't getting in there. Because the boxers know it's like you have maybe one fight, two fights at the most. It beats up your hands more than anything. Then you get your face all cut up, and who wants to risk it getting? But I don't know. I don't know if it can. It's one of those freak shows that people want to tune in for, but then don't want to see. Almost like the slap fighting.
Power slap?
Yeah.
Do you watch that at all or no?
Oh, everybody does.
I don't mind it. I like power slap.
You like it?
I like it. I can watch it. That's what everyone said about UFC, though, in the beginning. Oh, the sport's crazy. But then you start getting the momentum.
I don't want to put it. I wouldn't put it down because, like, I know that they're doing high numbers. And Dana White really likes it. But man, like you can't move. I can understand if you can like duck or dodge, but you're just standing there. That's like, here, you get a concussion, you get a concussion, you get a concussion. Like what?
Yeah.
I don't look at that as a safe sport.
It's wild and live. We went back in July. We went to a power slap event live.
Yeah.
And just hearing that smack and it's hard to watch.
And I don't think those guys are getting paid that much.
Yeah, there's an opportunity for a star though to come in and do it.
Yeah, no.
Bare Knuckles is stretch, but power slap, no.
We're one step away from, what was that movie called with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day? The Running Man? Was it The Running Man?
I don't know. I don't think I've seen it.
I got to look at anybody that's older. The Running Man, where they used to take people from prison, and if they try to get away, they can get away and they're free. And then they would send people out to kill them, and it was like a game show.
Really? We'll see. Well,
but I mean,
we'll have to check it out.
I thought about that because, like, man, we want more. We had kickboxing. Oh no, we want some wrestling. We got MMA. MMA is everything. We don't need anything past that. And like, all right, well, we can do no gloves. No, that's fun. Then what's next? Like gunfights, sword fights.
Literally, it might be.
That's where we're going.
That's where we're heading.
Because people love it. See, that was the one thing for me that was hard with fighting. When I was fighting, I enjoyed the martial art. I enjoyed jiu-jitsu. I enjoyed high-level jiu-jitsu. I enjoyed boxing. I fell in love with boxing. I love looking at like high-level Muay Thai. But sometimes some of the crowds aren't that educated enough to know all that's going on. Like if somebody goes down to the ground, they're like, get them back up so they can start swinging. But there's a lot going on down there. I remember one of the fights I was down there and I had this guy pinned down. You know, I'm trying to take strikes on him to finish the fight. They're like, kill him. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's a little gruesome there.
I don't know if you guys want to see that right now. But I think it's getting to that point where they just want more. The crowd wants more. Instead of just understanding the art of MMA. And I think a lot of the gyms popping up, I think the gyms are making it more understandable. So now people are watching it. Like I taught boxing in Colorado when I was there for a while, and I was teaching a lot of housewives. So and they wouldn't when their husbands are watching the fights, I don't want to watch that. But when I taught them boxing and we started really like understanding boxing, they would go back and they would watch and they were like, oh, now we can understand a little bit more. So I like the fact that MMA gyms are actually teaching people that and they're educating them on fighting. So now you have a different crowd coming in, not just a crowd that wants to see, we want blood. We want to knock his head off, knock him down.
There's always going to be those crazy guys. But
There always will.
I love training too because you're in their shoes and you know what they're going through, and you know some of those positions are hard to get and hard to get up from. So to boo it is just ridiculous. That's my biggest pet peeve. I hate when people boo fights. I cannot stand it.
And that's I think that it's so hard. And I don't want to just say the United States, but it is kind of like that in the United States. Like, you're only as good as your last fight. Like, and that's a hard thing. And you can't find the best fighters if you're going in there saying, I just can't lose. Because if you have that mentality, you can't just let yourself go and really fight. That's why some of my best training was in practice. Like, I would train with like everybody across the board, and I love training with people. I love fighting with people. I would fight anyone in the room. But when you have a contract and you got to be in front of people and everything like that, now it's different, because now I'm putting everything on the line. As opposed to, like, if you go, when I was down in Japan, when I was doing a lot of work in Japan, they would cheer both fighters. They would cheer just a good fight. So guys would go out there and have great fights, because it was like, go out there and fight. It's not about the win and loss. It's about training yourself to a certain level and testing yourself. And sometimes in tests, you don't succeed. And that's just part of the game. And if you don't succeed, you can go back to the drawing board, train some more, and maybe take that test again. Here, it's like, you're not taking a test. You're putting everything on the line. So it's like, oh, he's the greatest fighter, and then next week he's terrible. Yeah. Because I've heard so many times like that. You see somebody that had the title in the UFC gets beat, even gets knocked out. They're like, oh, he sucks. Like, how did he suck? He didn't suck. He lost, and that can happen. Styles make matchups, so anybody can lose.
At the end of the day, it's a fight.
It's a fight.
Anything can happen.
But all right, Bobby, well, you just spelt burn in your life, so thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell the audience where they can find you, social media, everything.
Oh, you can find me at, I think my social media is, my Twitter is Fight Bobby, and Instagram is just Bobby Lashley.
You heard the man. Go give him some love. And as a gift for coming on the show, Bobby, you will be getting the Black Label Edition Burn Factory hoodie and hat, where only guests get these. So
beautiful.
There you go. Wear it loud, wear it proud.
Yes.
But that's going to do it for another episode of the Burn Factory podcast. Like always, like, comment, and subscribe at the Burn Factory podcast.
And always be sure to visit my foundation as well, the priestjamesfoundation.org. Again, the priestjamesfoundation.org, to understand why this is called the Burn Factory.
And we'll see you guys for the next episode. Peace.
All right, guys, we're here with Bobby Lashley, who just spelled burn in his life. And he is now the Burn Factory podcast champion.
And new. You can add it to the collection of the belts. But thank you so much for coming on the show, Bobby. We had a blast. We hope you had just as much as fun. So thank you so much.
Great time.
He's the new champion.